So by now you've seen the great video that highlights, it gives an overview of the Twin Cities Boards and Commissions Leadership Program. So in this video, we're going to talk a little bit more in detail about how to apply and a little bit more about the program itself. So overall, the program is a 7-month leadership program where we support, train, and place people of color on priority publicly appointed boards and commissions in support of racial equity. The origin of the BCLI program started out at an environmental justice advocacy organization out in Oakland that asked this really interesting question about what would it take not just to have a seat at the table, but an actual vote. And so Nexus Community Partners brought the program here into the Twin Cities about 5 years ago. And for us at Nexus, our mission is to build more engaged and powerful communities of color. And what we know is that leadership is critical to this work. We believe all community members are leaders and that what they really need to be given are ample opportunities to grow in their leadership, particularly at different multiple tables and at multiple spaces. And for us, at Nexus in the Twin Cities, we want fellows to hold priority seats and to be technically and politically prepared for the end result of having actual policies and resources changed for more racial and economic equity. So you heard a little bit from the video about why boards or commissions are really important, but here's a list of things that they do. They take in a lot of community input on different public decisions and public comments into policy consideration. And they also do a lot of research. And at the end of the day, they eventually do make recommendations to usually the next level up, which is the elected authorities, the city councils, the mayors, and they also make decisions about policies and implementation. They operate at this hidden level of power that not a lot of people are aware about. The BCLI, though, is not your typical leadership development training program. We really think of the work as a social change tool that really shapes these policies, and that comes from community. We talk about power and systems, we talk about how we hold ourselves accountable to a broader community, and really make sure the outcomes are shaped by different voices. And what's really important is that we learn together. The cohort model is extremely key to this work. We often know leaders of color can be the only people at these tables, and it can be pretty isolated spaces. So we want to make sure that the cohort models and being together is really important. And particularly to folks who are not have the same background and in a multiracial setting. We also know access to other networks is really important too. And for us, throughout the program, we expose the fellows to government, nonprofit, private sectors, to different folks doing advocacy, organizing, and engagement, and folks working on different issues such as community development, transit, and health. So the ideal candidate for our program needs to have the subcategory of these 3 items. 1, we really want folks who are committed to social, racial, and economic justice. And for us, they need to have a racial equity analysis, a belief that race is a social construct, and a little knowledge of the history of race in the United States, and understanding and the impact of policy and the role of systems, and kind of personal or professional experience in advocacy and systems. Now, 2 and 3 sound very fancy, but I often use the example of if you've ever been a parent and you've had to advocate for your child in the public school system or any school system, you've done this work. If you've ever had to help any elder navigate the healthcare system, you've done this work. And of course, the last items, 2 through 5, are just simple requirements for the program to match residency requirements for the board or commission, be 18 years of age, attend all of our trainings, and then obviously commit to serving on a board or commission during or after the BCLI program itself. And these terms can be typically between 2 or 3 years. Great, so how does the program exactly work? We'll go through these steps in more detail in the next upcoming slides. First, we're really intentional about how we target our seats. The BCLI staff do a lot of research about what seats are important, which ones can really influence and advance equity. And we really talk a lot about the culture and structure of each particular board or commission. And then we narrow the list down to the priority seats that are listed in the application packet. These are the issue areas we target: economic development, health, housing, transit, and workforce. These are really linked to Nexus's areas of knowledge and expertise. You'll notice that the field of education isn't on here, partially for several reasons. For the fact that that's not been one of Nexus's strengths, but that there's also a myriad of other great organizations that are working on educational equity efforts. These are the geographies that we're focused on for this year. We're in 8 geographic areas. We started out the program just in the 2 cities and each year have expanded. These are also the correspond to the targeted seats that are listed in the nomination/application packet. So how does this work if you're interested in applying? Organizations nominate you, and then you apply. The different types of organizations, these are just a few examples of ones that have typically nominated people in the past. Certainly alumni have nominated people, as well as faith-based organizations. Folks in labor have had their unions nominate them. Other leadership programs from nonprofits, government, sometimes staff of different agencies or electeds want to apply for the program. Funders can nominate, and also community elders. But because we want people to be really intentional and thoughtful, we limit our the nominations to one organization nominating one candidate and one alumni nominating a candidate each year too. What if you're not affiliated with an organization? First, we'd ask you to think about what organizations you already hold yourself accountable to or network with. Certainly they can be community organizations or faith-based organizations. And last but not least, if you don't have anyone you're affiliated with, we definitely can connect you by your interest area and your networks. So here is what actually goes into the application nomination packet. We need just 5 items from you. From the nominator, your cover sheet and letter, and from the candidate, a cover sheet, letter of interest, and a current resume. We really recommend that these items be sent from the candidate at the same time, but if not, we can have the nominator can go ahead and send it to us separately, and as long as the name of the candidate is listed on their letter. When we put together a cohort of about 15 to 16 people, these are the number of different things that we look at in making that determination. We also look at a combination of who's already seated. So if you're on your first term, please consider applying for the program. We also take people, the majority of our folks are exploring boards and commissions, and a number of them are committed just to being seated on a board or commission during the course of the program. The trainings themselves are 7 months, technically 6 months, with April being our graduation. We have one Saturday session that's required for all the fellows from 9 to 5. That's at Nexus Community Partners office in St. Paul. We also require fellows to attend the Thursday night issue series. We'll talk a little bit more about those in detail, and have a number of online readings, webinars, and discussions. And in return for this, we do offer a stipend for our fellows for their commitment to the program that we pay out in 2 payments because of the time away from their families and from their work, and to cover things like transportation costs that may be prohibitive to them joining the program. So here is the curriculum. So what do we exactly learn at the Saturday sessions? As we take those issue areas we explored before, we really do an economic and racial and economic overlay on all these issues. So for example, if we're talking about housing, we'll be looking at local Twin Cities, if not Minnesota, housing data and how it impacts different communities of color. For example, the disparity in home ownership rates. We also ask these key questions about who benefits and who's burdened, and this is a window of opportunity to act for a more equitable outcome. We keep coming back to these key questions as we explore different policies. We also are really about an adult learning model, which is where we move from readings and videos to actual application in the sessions, and then also talk about the current issues. These are some of the examples of the different training modules that we have in our program. And as you see here, there's a number of different skills we know people need to be successful. The political skills, working with people, the technical skills, sort of like the rules and the operating procedure, and then the content, which are the knowledge integration sessions. As you see here, folks learn about various tools and they're all applied. So when we talk about municipal budgets, we have people you're actually budgeting for a city and what that looks like. As I mentioned before, these are the Thursday night issue series. These are an opportunity for fellows and for the general public to join us to learn more about what are some interesting things that are happening out there in community. These are the ones that we hosted this past program year. As you see, there's a wide variety of issues from people, power, and planning to bus rapid transit, BRT versus light rail transit. And then looking at health and healing for all, which really focus on the issue of trauma and healing in communities. Here, and we also bring a variety of speakers who have experience on these issues from a number of different sectors. And of course, getting seated. the critical thing that you should understand in this program is that staff are really in a big support function to all the fellows. We really work with you all to put together what your plan is going to be. In many cases, review your application. If need be, sit down and practice interviews, and really are behind the scenes doing a lot of advocacy to the staff and to certain electeds about why you should be placed on a board or commission. Again, as I mentioned earlier, we really work with networks from both inside and outside the systems. And of course, we have alumni programming. We would be remiss if we didn't acknowledge the 4 cohorts that came before, many of whom who are doing amazing things out in community and who've expressed interest in wanting to do continued professional development and best practice sharing about policies, as well as continued learning opportunities, and of course, network and socializing. We also engaged a number of our alumni in working with us in selecting and sometimes training our new cohorts. So here are some of our program outcomes to date. Of our 55 alumni of the 4 cohorts, about 28 of them have been placed or serve on a board or commission, or actually serve as policy staff to an elected official. Here are a couple of examples of the different boards and commissions that they end up being placed on, including the Ramsey County Workforce Investment Board, the Minneapolis Community Environmental Advisory Committee, the Met Council's Transportation Advisory Board. So most important is the June 16th date that's coming up quick to get your application/nominations in. In August, we'll do interviews with those selected to come in, and then in September, we'll announce the cohort and kick off in October. A question we often get is, what about the boards of nonprofit organizations? Well, we think they're a great community institution, but however, our focus is on systems change, and therefore we don't target nonprofit boards. But there's a really great organization in town called Board Repair that actually does. So if you're interested in that, you can check out their Facebook page. If you have any other additional questions, here's the contact information for myself and the BCLI program coordinator. We are very available via phone or email and are quick to respond to folks. So if you've got questions, bring them on. In the meanwhile, good luck. We thank you for watching this webinar, and we hope you apply or tell someone in your network to apply. Have a great day.